Jimmy Carter's first foreign trip after his election as President of the United States of America was to attend an economic summit conference in London. However, he arrived in England a few days prior to this event and honoured the Northeast with a visit to Washington Old Hall, the ancestral home of George Washington, the first President of America. The crowds were out in force, attracted by the razzmatazz which surrounds all American presidents. Security was strong, as befits one of the most powerful men in the world. The American Secret Service agents, supposedly in plain clothes, seemed to stand out even more obviously than our own uniformed policemen. Even their methods of communication were different. All the local dignitaries waited inside the grounds of the hall. Sir James Steele, Lord Lieutenant of Tyne and Wear, with some local members of Parliament. The Mayor and Mayoress of Sunderland, Mr. and Mrs. Charles Slater. And Giles Radici, Member of Parliament for Chesterley Street. At last the presidential motorcade arrived. First to step out was Ernie Armstrong, the local Member of Parliament in charge of the visit. He was followed by the Prime Minister, James Callaghan, and the man so many had waited to see, Jimmy Carter, President of the United States of America. They stepped inside the old hall for a few minutes, the ancestral home of the Washington family that had not only given its name to this northeastern mining village, but also to the capital city of America. One of the luckiest local inhabitants was Ian Macquarie, the youngest member of Washington Welfare Band, who was presented with a picture signed by the President. All too soon, though, the presidential party moved on, towards the more serious duties of economic discussions. But for the moment, all was cheers and smiles, and it was not clear who was enjoying it most, the crowds or Jimmy Carter himself. A couple of months later, the Washington Welfare Band were again entertaining crowds, who had gathered to welcome some more important visitors. The venue this time was the more spacious sports arena in the centre of Washington New Town. Here, 20 of the region's top juvenile jazz bands, over 1,000 children altogether, were to present a colourful display to the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh during their Silver Jubilee tour of the country. After the formal presentations, the new Mayor of Sunderland, Councillor Tom Bridges, led the royal visitors through the happy throng. Prince Philip was soon engaged in conversation with members of the various youth organisations who provided the Guard of Honour. At the start of the Queen's countrywide tour, one enterprising youngster informally presented her with a posy of flowers. By this stage, the gesture had become almost a tradition, and the Queen's hands were soon quite full. At the end of the march past, the royal visitors were introduced to the drum majorettes of the various bands. All visits must come to an end, and the Royal Jubilee programme was particularly full. But the people of Washington were happy to have welcomed the leaders of the two major English-speaking countries in the world, the old and the new, Washington Old Hall and Washington New Town, greeting a new President of America and the Queen who had happily reigned for 25 years.